Another round in the books, another week of NBL Now here to wrap everything up and look ahead at what's to come in round 11. We're casting an eye forward to Heritage Round, and we're still basking in the afterglow that was Bryce Cotton's magnificent performance on Sunday afternoon. Joel Peterson and Brad Rosen with you this morning. Morning, Brad.
Joel, it is a privilege to watch that man play basketball, and it's the old adage, isn't it? Just appreciate it now because one day he won't be here, and what an outstanding game that was.
Yeah, it was quite the spectacle to be a part of the broadcast for it. And there's a certain rhythm to calling Bryce Cotton games where you almost expect that at some point he'll string a few possessions together, a few plays together, and you're ready for, I guess, the sort of the rise in the atmosphere at RAC Arena and that kind of thing. It just never fell. It just kept on going. It was
unbelievable.
Crazy.
Well, I was there, 10, 12, two weekdays, 2 weeks ago to watch, Bateman score his 51, ironically, against Perth. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's just come off the back of, Chris Goulding scoring 46. And you just think this just keeps going. And defense is getting better. Things are working hard. Like everyone knows what's going on. And then for Bryce to come out, 28 shots for 59 points. Now, just a little bit to his Perth teammates. Give him the ball. Let him get 60. But that's Bryce, right? He was like, nope, if the shot's open, you take it. Don't worry about it. But that was a privilege to watch, Joel. That was just unbelievable basketball by the man.
Yeah, it was crazy. He was pretty cooked at the end too.
He was.
He was pretty cooked. But, I mean, it is interesting that we've got this sort of run of, in 3 weeks, basically, we've had, Chris Goulding hitting 46, James Bateman one-upping that with 51, and then James Bateman's record lasted all of however long, a couple of weeks before Bryce Cotton beats it and goes almost into sort of stratospheric type territory. Do you think there's something in that in the way that the game's being played at the moment, pace of play, or what do you think's leading to that?
Well, I think we're the NBA now. You look at the way it's going on. You look, NBA's always got, players scoring these big points. Why? They're hitting massive threes. The shots that these guys are taking, I was sitting there at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. Some of those James Bateman shots were unbelievable that he made. Now, we've watched Chris Goulding shoot, I still can't believe he missed 11 shots over his 33s that he took for the Boomers over there. But, he's hit 19 threes coming on the back of 60 for the season. And the shots they're taking and making is unbelievable. It doesn't really matter what the defense is doing, and no different to Bryce Cotton, 7 of 15 from the three-point line. Then when you are hitting threes like that, we're talking Steph Curry-like, where you've got to run at him at the three-point line. So now they up fake and they get to the hole and everything. So I can see some big scores. There'll be some, players like, I think DJ in Adelaide will be like, my name needs to get up there soon. So I think he'll be looking at it. But, I mean, it's just a privilege to watch. And, Chris Goulding again against Sydney on the weekend. He was just phenomenal.
Yeah, he was. We'll touch on that Sydney game in a second. Parker Jackson-Cartwright, just a word on him, 34 and 10 and completely overshadowed. I mean, the guy's probably the favourite for the MVP at this point of the season. He's had a career best night. And we're not really even talking about him.
I thought you guys did a great job on the commentary because it was like, that other guy's got 30. It was just amazing the way you guys were doing it. But look, he's been brilliant. And New Zealand, that's been a train wreck since Fever, hasn't it? I mean, it's only been a couple of games, but that Freddie Gillespie is a big loss. You can see what's going on. Tacko Fall went down injured. We hope all that's okay. I don't think there's word out of New Zealand yet, but it didn't look good because no one was around that one of those injuries. It's no question he's the MVP at the moment, but there'll be some people in Perth and West saying, what about our guy? But PJ's been awesome.
Yeah, he absolutely has. So on the New Zealand thing, so Dane Pineau, that looked a fairly serious injury. Yeah. That didn't look like a good one for the Breakers. So that tests their big depth. And then, so Tacko Fall, goes down with the knee injury, sort of clutching at that knee. It looked, borderline non-contact, which is never a good sign. He was able to walk off under his own steam, which most of the time is a good sign, but sometimes can not necessarily be the thing you think it is.
You can walk off with an ACL. I'm not suggesting that's an ACL. So once it calms down, if you call it, or cools down and stuff. And Mitch McCarron had his knee strap, which I saw, and I was a bit sort of like, he didn't play many minutes, but his minutes have
the season.
Yeah, and his minutes have been up and down anyway this year. So is that an injury thing? So they looked a wounded bull basically. And I was in Illawarra the other night on that Thursday night, and they were not in the contest, and they didn't look a happy bunch.
Yep. So the minutes with Fall are an interesting one. There's been a lot of chatter on Twitter of people sort of talking about, how do they play with him? Can they play that style with him that drops coverage where he's not willing to get out of the paint? And Bryce Cotton is a very good exponent. If you've got a weakness, Bryce will make you pay, and he will magnify that weakness. Do you see if Tacko is able to get back out there and that injury isn't too serious in the near term, do they have to maybe change that approach?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, you're not going to get him up and doubling on the ball. It's not going to work. Now, whilst, if I'm coaching, I don't want drops. That's just the way I am. I like the fact that you double hard, you rotate, and you work off that. If there's certain players you can play off drops, but you can't do that against Bryce Cotton and certain other players. So for me, I know Pete Hooley's been saying a lot, they're going to have to play a zone. No disagreement there. You've got to look at the weakness that he may bring, but then you've also got to look at the strength. That first play in Illawarra, they just came down and threw it over the top and said, catch it and dunk it, right? So there is some positives that you can get out of Tacko Fall. It's just a completely different game than when you got Gillespie. That's the thing that's hard. We do have to remember Jonah Bolden wasn't playing this whole weekend as well. So you bring him back in the mix, a guy that's a stretch four that can shoot the three. That opens up the offensive end a lot more. So I think that could help them. But on the defensive end, that drops is definitely an issue and something they're going to have to work on.
Yeah, so a bit of a watch and see the NBL app, nbl.com.au, for all the injury updates as they land throughout the week. The Sydney Kings were the other confounding team yet again on Sunday. Melbourne United absolutely boat raced them in the first half. Yeah. And the Kings just sort of wound them back in and pulled them back in. A couple of late game moments, which were discussed on Moments That Mattered yesterday with Jack and Derek. Jalen Adams one stood out among all that. But they
never seen that. Never. I mean, I've seen backcourts, but I've never seen that. That was unbelievable.
There was a lack of awareness, a lack of really any kind of intent to bring that ball up. Where are the Kings at for you at the moment? Brian Gorgon said after the game, he thinks that tag of favourites was absurd. It sounds like he's trying to sort of walk back the expectations that were placed on the team before the start of the season. And in the end, they fought their way back into that game and they could have won it. They could, they did win on Friday night. Is our expectation elevated beyond what they're able to deliver at the moment, or where are we at with Sydney?
No, I think we're right where we should be. They're rocks and diamonds. That's the best way I can put it. When they're good, they're great. They give up 38 points in the second quarter against Melbourne. You don't win games like that. That doesn't matter. Brian Gorgon, greatest coach ever to, be on our and grace our floor. There's no question about that. And he is renowned for the defense. And he would say it himself, if you're giving up 38 points in a quarter, you're not going to win games. Now, then they defended and then they gave up 14 in the third quarter. So they can do it. And that's what we see. And we know that they're capable of doing that. Then Jalen Adams had probably a quiet night, comes out in the fourth, bang, bang, right at the end of the game. And you think, here we go. And then they walk the ball up and have an 8-second violation. Now, we can sit here and we say, look, it shouldn't come down to those one or two plays. It shouldn't. But tell that to Melbourne when Jack McVeigh got that turnover and hit that three last year to win a game. It does come down to those one or two plays. So, yeah, very, very difficult loss. I think the Kings are right where they deserve to be. They're not, down the bottom in that 8, 9, 10, and they're not up the top in that 1, 2, and 3. Right now, to me, it's Melbourne and Illawarra right there. They're the two. I don't think anyone can beat Melbourne at the moment except Illawarra. Everyone else is playing. And then you've got your next tier, Adelaide. We saw what happened to them and the other teams coming through. But right now, the Sydney Kings, that 4th, 6th, 5th spot is exactly where they are. And they're not going to improve from that spot unless they improve on the defensive end and get stops and keep teams to lower numbers.
If you put it into the sort of the theory of, who do you trust? You trust Melbourne to deliver. You trust Illawarra to deliver.
Yep.
I don't trust Sydney. I don't trust Adelaide.
That's it.
I probably don't trust Perth unless they're at home.
No.
There's not too many teams that you can bank on. And now New Zealand, who looked a pretty good thing at the start of the year, you're sort of left scratching your head with them too.
Yeah, look, I mean, going back on the Kings for a little bit, I think it is 10 away games at the moment out of their games, and they're 5-5. Like that's you want to split your aways, right? So in essence, you sort of tick the boxes and you go, okay, they've got a very big run of home games coming up. They're one of the lesser teams in the league for their home games. But it's not like they're at home and they're unstoppable like a Perth Wildcats, right? So Perth don't lose at home, or if they do, it's very rare. So it's just it's such an interesting league. I feel Adelaide are the team that could go there. I'm not confident in anyone else, like you said, with New Zealand. Give me that a month ago. Oh yeah, they're rolling, and these guys look great. I don't like the Freddie Gillespie replacement, and that's nothing against Tacko. I just think Freddie was playing outstanding basketball for that team and what they needed, and that's why PJC was MVP of the league. Obviously, he's very good as well, but it's that type of situation. So for me, Melbourne right up the top, and Illawarra like holding on their ladder. Come on, I'm trying to climb and get you, and everyone else, you're playing for third.
Yeah, it seems that way at the moment. Was Will Magnay robbed of one of the great highlights across the weekend?
Oh, sure. That is the greatest non-block I've ever seen in my life. That is unbelievable. To block that shot, oh, man, and then to bring it down with his left hand. I played against a guy called Simon Dwight. Now, Simon Dwight was, if not the greatest shot blocker I've ever seen in the NBL. Now, mate, Will Magnay has taken that mantle. Sorry, Dwighty, this thing is unbelievable. And for going up there, I mean, I know if you speak to that referee, can I please not block that? I shouldn't have. That is the play of the year. That will not be the play of the year. Unbelievable block.
Yeah, and Will's put it up on socials and said, clear foul.
I love that. I love that. You got to have some fun with it. You got to have some fun. It's brilliant.
Yep, absolutely. But as far as players who are box office at the defensive end go, like we know Will Magnay can throw it down. Just ask the Illawarra Hawks from that playing game last year. But he is at the defensive end. Must watch basketball.
Unbelievable. And can I throw out to Sean McDonald as well? That team is different now that he's back, right? That is a huge difference. We talk about Jack McVeigh all year. You can't replace a guy like that. But Sean McDonald, now you see Drimmick getting his numbers up a little bit. I don't think all of that is a coincidence. Sean McDonald is a huge piece for that team. Can they run and can they get the wins and make a run for the playoffs? Probably, but, they're coming from a long way down. That's the problem. But man, Will Magnay, that guy is NBL first team, no question. Defensive player of the year, no question. Best block of the year, sorry, can't allow it.
Yeah, fair enough. Just on the standings as well. So Melbourne 11-4, Illawarra 8-5 as second, New Zealand 7-5 in third. Then you've got Sydney and Perth both 8-7, Adelaide 6-6, so a couple of games in hand for the 36ers. Southeast Melbourne is 7, 6 and 8, and then Tassie are 8, 6 and 8. So there's sort of these, if you
isn't there?
Yeah, if you think about it in terms of losses, so Sydney and Perth are a game ahead of Tassie and Southeast Melbourne in the loss column, but they have played one more. They're only half a game ahead, and Tassie have gone 3 in a row. Suddenly they're back in the fight.
Joel, I can't remember what year it was, and you'll probably know the year that Bryce Cotton came to Australia. Right. And I'm commentating in Sydney, and the Perth make a big change. They're sitting, I'm pretty sure it was last on the ladder. It might have been 2017, 16, I don't know what it was. It was around that, right? Yep. And you sit there and you go, oh, Perth, man, they're not going to make the playoffs for the first time in 30 odd years. There was a lot of that talk. Then this guy, Bryce Cotton, come in. They're sitting last. They win the comp. So from that, I have never turned around and said anything is, but you get on a run, you win the comp. Melbourne, they will be there. They would be so nervous because they were there last year. And they probably, you could argue, should have they won it last year? But the fairy tale was defend the island, right? And that won. So Melbourne, you just don't know. Could there be those cobwebs in there that they might have to kink out come playoffs? So any team, if they get on that run, it could happen. And Tasmania are one of them, no question.
Yeah, they're one of the contenders at the moment. It was 2017 for Bryce that he landed in Perth. And
there you go.
Yeah, what an impact he's had since. Hey, round 11 is Heritage Round. It starts with a Thursday night double header. We're in Christchurch for New Zealand taking on Melbourne United on Thursday night, and then Tasmania take on Cairns. But of course, it kicks off the Heritage Round discussion. There's some great jerseys that are going to be worn
I love
the course of the weekend. What memories does it evoke for you, Brad?
Well, they're actually wearing the jerseys from 1996, which is a year that I played in, and that was some fun times. Which, ironically, the coach that year was Alan Black, who's now sitting on the sidelines in Perth commentating, and it was just such fun times. And it does make you reminisce when that uniform comes out. That was my favourite uniform that we had. And when I look at that and I think this is awesome, I see Sammy Mack in the Magic uniforms. I was down in Illawarra on Thursday night. They had all their past players in a pre-game get together that I was able to talk in. Got booed, mind you, so thank you, Illawarra. Appreciate that because they love the Sydney Kings players. But no, it was good fun and they were joking. And now I'm going to Perth on Friday night, looking forward to calling that game. I believe Ricky Grace is going, all of these players, and you just look at that and think, I remember the day I stepped onto the court, and I got a great little story here of Andrew Gaze, and I'm a young kid and, playing in the game, and Melbourne Tigers have come to town. Of course, Copes and Drury have gone to work on us and probably got 70 between them. So we're down by 20. So they put the young kid on, and that's me. And I come on, and, the crowd's like, oh, here's this young kid. And Andrew Gaze puts his hand out and gives me 5 and says, good luck, young fella. That's Andrew Gaze to me, right? And it just still gives me goosebumps. The history of this league is unbelievable, and I'm so glad the NBL have done this Heritage Round. It's fantastic, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with all of that. Can't wait to see those colours in action, and can't wait to hear your voice again on Friday night over in the West for that Perth game. And Perth games are always fun, so I can't wait. There'll be a lot of people tuned in. Brad, thanks for your time this morning on NBL Now. Have a good week. Brad Rosen with us on NBL Now. NBL app, nbl.com.au for all you need for it throughout the week.